Hey, today is National Pretzel Day. Yes, National Pretzel Day. And once again, I swear I do not make these things up. It is really National Pretzel Day, gang. So, are you the type who enjoys the real hard, crunchy sorts of pretzels that come in all different shapes and sizes, the twists and the sticks and the rods? Or are you like me and definitely dig the softer pretzels? The nice soft pretzels, dip it in a little cheese. That's tasty for certain. There's also something else that I know for certain, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I am Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again, and I am your host here on the Daily Dope. I also happen to be the Grand Poobah, which means I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of the GamingGang.com. So, welcome aboard. Today is Thursday, April 26th, 2018, and it is true. Today is National Pretzel Day, and I have to admit, I don't plug things too often. You know, I don't sit there and say, oh, hey, go eat at this restaurant or anything along those lines. But I do have to admit, whenever I'd be traveling all around the country and I would run across a Red Robin, I would always go in and get their soft pretzel bites that they have. They've got, they serve it with kind of like this beer cheese. Damn tasty, and actually pretty affordable too. And as an appetizer, I swear it was big enough to sort of be a meal in its own. So, anyway, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining me once again. It is Thursday, so that means I am going to be looking at an RPG. So let me grab a sip here. If you have not stopped in to watch the Daily Dope before, just want to let you know that it's very casual atmosphere. This is a live stream, so there is chat available. It's available through YouTube. It's not on screen, so that kind of helps keep some of the creeps away. But if you want to say hello, you want to say howdy, or if you have a question about the role-playing game supplement that I'm going to be reviewing today, which is actually Lankhmar Savage Seas of Nehwon for Savage Worlds from Pinnacle Entertainment, feel free to chime in. Just fire away. So, today's kind of going to be a bit of a shorter show, I have to admit. Number one, because there wasn't a whole lot of news popping. That wasn't just a cavalcade of Kickstarters again, as it seems to be every day. Of course, I do have a Kickstarter news piece, but it's something that I think looks really cool. And of course, I am going to be reviewing a PDF. So I've got some slides, some images that I'm going to share, but not like when I have a physical book that we can kind of kick back and leisurely page through it and kind of discuss the book in those respects. So I do have to point out that 90% likely not going to be a show tomorrow. Yes, I know, and I will explain why after I finish up with the news. As I mentioned previously, not a ton of news today, but there is some pretty cool stuff that's cooking. And first off, it's Modiphius Entertainment, because they have revealed a new fantasy board game. Yes, I know the company is really known for their excellent role-playing games, but this looks interesting since you actually will play kind of the baddies. Here is the dope on Ravage, Dungeons of Plunder. High up in the Blackroot Mountains lives a tribe of orcs. They are ultra competitive with one another, and the chieftain promotes this in his warriors. They occasionally team up in an uneasy alliance to plunder nearby caverns and outposts. Many times these raids are purely to plunder them for loot, while ridding the nearby area of nasty monsters at the same time. Other times they're formed by the chieftain to exterminate a specific target. To keep the peace, the chieftain selects a warrior from each caste of the tribe: the berserkers, the shamans, the headhunters, and the cultists. In this exciting board game from Ian Schofield, you play one of the Black Root Orcs in his chosen raiding party, taking on one of the roles in it. Ravage, Dungeons of Plunder, also contains 3 gameplay modes and styles of play. Cooperative, where you play through the quests together. Solo, so you can play solitaire against the dungeon and try to survive. And Treachery, which is a versus mode, and the first player to kill 6 heroes is the winner. The game is for 1 to 5 players, I believe. I've seen differing information. I've seen 1 to 4, and I've seen 1 to 5. I'm thinking it's 1 to 5, though. It is for ages 14 and up, and will play in about 30 to 90 minutes. Of course, that's going to depend on the number of players. Ravage, Dungeons of Plunder, will carry an MSRP of around $48.95. Here is the odd bit about this title. Now, and as I mentioned before, Modiphius does some fantastic role-playing games, some awesome stuff. Conan, Star Trek, Mutant Year Zero, lots of really, I mean, there's tons. I mean, the list goes on and on. But they have done some board games in the past, so this does look kind of cool as sort of a dungeon crawl. Thing is, I don't know when it's coming out. I have absolutely no idea when it's coming out. I don't know if it's out now, if you're pre-ordering. I think it's a pre-order currently. So, I don't know. Keep your eyes peeled. If I find out more, I will definitely let everybody know on a future show. All right, so I mentioned I had a Kickstarter news piece, and this is a big one because Mantic Games unveiled a new Kickstarter. It's already broken the $1 million threshold. Yes, it is pretty much cracked $1 million. And I've got the dope on Hellboy, the board game. Designed by James M. Hewitt, the brains behind the likes of Dreadball, Blood Bowl 2016, Necromunda, Underhive, and Warhammer Quest, Silver Tower, Hellboy the board game features incredibly detailed pre-assembled PVC plastic miniatures that capture the unique look and feel of Mike Mignola's visionary work. Hellboy the board game gives you the chance to take control of an iconic member of the BPRD. Choose from Hellboy, Abe Sapien, Liz Sherman, and Johann Kraus before equipping your agent with additional items that will help in the mission ahead. Each trinket, charm, or weapon costs money though, so you'll need to spend wisely. Each of the missions in the core game begins by reading a BPRD case file. This will set the scene for the investigation ahead and give hints about what threats you may encounter. The contents of each case file are top secrets. The first time you play, you'll have no idea what you're about to face. During play, agents must carefully balance the information gathered track against the ominous impending doom track. Information gathered represents the clues you uncover about the monster you're hunting, while the impending doom track marks how closely humanity is to the brink of destruction. Hate when that happens. Do you spend valuable time investigating the scene to find a vital piece of the puzzle that could expose a crucial weakness of your foe, but risk the impending doom track reaching its devastating finale? Or do you forget the clues and rush through to a final confrontation before the monster has gathered its strength? No one said being a BPRD agent would be easy. I do have a quick video. It's about 2 minutes. It does show off some of the goodies to be included in Hellboy the board game on Kickstarter right now.
Hellboy, the board game, takes these adventures to the tabletop. Stunning miniatures bring Mike Mignola's visionary comic to life. In this cooperative game, you control a BPRD member. Read a top-secret BPRD case file for the mission ahead. Before venturing out, equip your agent with specialist items. During the mission, you must tackle the Deck of Doom. This could reveal helpful information or a surprise attack by evil minions. When you're not duking it out, you will need to investigate to find the hidden artifacts or a crucial weakness of the threat you are hunting. Strike a balance between gathering clues or locating the target. But fail to find the vital piece of the puzzle, and the final confrontation will be a whole lot tougher. Back to Hellboy Kickstarter now. And help the BPRD stop the whole world from descending into madness.
Hey, I have to say that does look pretty cool. Hellboy the board game is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. You can score the core game, an expansion, the first expansion, and some other exclusive goodies at the $132 pledge level. The project does run through May 25th, and it does have an expected delivery of February of next year. Okay, so if you don't happen to know what the BPRD stands for, it's the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. So I happen to be a big fan of Hellboy, and I have read the Hellboy comics for a long, long time. I know, I can't say I've read every story arc, but I would say about the first 5-6 years, I have read all of it. And this does look pretty cool, I have to admit. $132, it's a little scary because it's a board game, right? But from what I've seen, this does look more like kind of a heavier, kind of more of a miniatures game that actually takes place on board game tiles more than anything else. As opposed to, oh, look, it's a board game that could have easily had just standees tossed in, and you're just adding the miniatures in to add some chrome and to really bump up the cost to back the project, right? I don't get that vibe from this title. And Mantic is really known for miniatures games, not for board games. So that's why I'm saying this probably veers more heavily into a miniatures type game. Probably along the lines that you could probably even set up your own terrain, because it appears like the tiles have, like 1-inch squares, things like that. Which games like that, you can always just create your own terrain and ditch tiles. Anyway, but this looks pretty cool. And then the other thing I noticed were some people were kind of like, well, how come Hellboy and the characters don't look like they do from the comics? I don't know how well that would go over. Now, I dig Mike Mignola's art. There is a certain style to it, but it is fairly minimal. I don't know if people would have jumped on board with miniatures that look like that. So, obviously, the sculptors did go for more of a Hellboy movie look to the characters, as opposed to just going directly from the artwork from Mike Mignola. But I gotta say, these figures look really, really cool. And I believe right now for the core box, it is, I think they're up to 108 miniatures that will come with the core box. And if you were just looking to score some minis, gotta admit, that's not too bad a price. 108 miniatures for $132. All right, my final news piece. Once again, I am always looking to save you guys some money. So if you are eagerly anticipating the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade, Onyx Path Publishing actually has a Vampire the Dark Ages bundle at Drive-Thru RPG if you'd like to dip your toes into some 13th century bloodletting. If you are not familiar with Vampire the Dark Ages, and keep in mind this is based on the 20th anniversary rule set, it's 1242. The Mongol army crushed Baghdad, then Russia under its heel, then moved on to devastate Poland and Hungary. The Holy Roman Empire stood to war with the papacy. The Second Lombard League wielded the word of the Pope and fought off Frederick II. The War of Princes rages. Patricide looms. Young powers look up the ladder to the next rungs and see stagnation and hypocrisy. They see targets. When they look down, they see humanity. They see a power that could change everything. They see mortals organizing into universities and empires. In the mortal world of 1242, power shifted at the rate an army marched. For the undead, power shifts faster than a fire overtakes a haven. To the damned, power flows as fast as blood from an ancient heart. Vampire 20th Anniversary Edition, The Dark Ages, is a storytelling game of horrific power. Featuring 13 clans and 19 bloodlines, this volume spans the dark medieval world. Contains full rules for play inspired by Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. Also features new and updated player options, including a brutal new system for Koldunic sorcery. Believe that's how it's pronounced. Should point out this bundle does contain 5 PDFs, one of which is a Game Master's screen. It normally carries an MSRP of $48.95. You can currently score the bundle for $23.98 through our friends over at Drive-Thru RPG. As I always mention, we are an affiliate. The Gaming Gang is an affiliate of Drive-Thru RPG. So anytime you're going over, if you're into role-playing games and you dig PDFs for role-playing games, whenever you're going to swing over to Drive-Thru, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads that go to a Drive-Thru site. And if you make a purchase, we get a small portion of that sale. And I'm telling you, it really does add up. Really helps keep the Gaming Gang around, at least online, that is, our website. So, I have to point out, and I have mentioned this previously before, I think there are some people who are eagerly awaiting the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade, and they are going to be disappointed. I think they are not going to like the setting or some of the mechanics as much as some of them may think. So, I should point out that with the 20th Anniversary Edition, and as far as I understand that is kind of the go-to edition for Vampire. I don't know for sure. I gotta be honest, I only really owned the first edition, and probably, I think I had like 3 books. And that was back when I picked up almost all RPG stuff, whenever I'd see it, right? I wish I had all that stuff. Oh, I'd be rolling in dough with all the original releases and original editions of stuff I picked up since, I don't know, 1978. But, all right, Pinky, relax. Yes, the kitties are downstairs again today. Smokey seems to be sacked out. I think she's snoozing down here. Pinky's kind of carrying on. Oh, well, okay, relax, Pinko. Anywho, I should point out that the 20th Anniversary Edition, I think, is the edition that everybody really digs. So this is a really good deal to check out the Dark Ages, because you're really only paying about what you would pay for the core book PDF. So pretty nice. Since I am talking about Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, it has been revealed when it's going to be out. Although we do not have a specific date, but we do have some pricing info. And if you watched the Daily Dope, I pretty much got this right on the nose as far as what they're going to be charging for the hardcover edition, which is going to come out in August. I'm assuming we are going to see it firsthand at Gen Con. That is when I assume we're going to first see this start hitting. And I'm not sure if it's going to be White Wolf who has a booth there selling it, or if it's going to be Modiphius Entertainment selling it, or possibly both. I don't know. But it will carry an MSRP of $55. So yes, I said it was obviously going to be between $50 and $60 was pretty much where I saw this going. And pretty much right on the money. All right, so that is it for the news today. As I had mentioned, kind of slow news day. So I had mentioned about a 90% chance that there will not be a show tomorrow. And that kind of piggybacks on some questions I've been getting at the mailbag. And of course, if you want to reach out, say hi, you have a question, comment, suggestion, what have you, you can reach me at mailbag@thegaminggang.com. I have had some people asking how I'm feeling. So if you are not a follower of the Gaming Gang, or you don't watch the Daily Dope religiously, you may not realize that I had a near fatal heart attack on March 15th, just a little more than a month ago. And yeah, it's not something I've been really talking a whole lot about. I had to change my diet, had to completely change my lifestyle, quit smoking. That's interesting. That has not been super easy. I am obviously putting on a little bit of weight from quitting smoking. That's not cool, but I do understand that that's kind of goes with the territory. So anyway, there is still plans for me to have a second stent put in the old ticker. So I had an appointment for first thing in the morning yesterday, just to go in, see the cardiologist. And they want to change it to right about the time the show is on. So I'm like, okay. So if, because it's kind of like they haven't changed it yet. They called and said they might need to change the appointment. They're supposed to let me know later this afternoon. So I don't know. I have no idea if there'd be a show tomorrow or not. I am guessing there will not be. So, Pinky, enough carrying on over there. She's like, wow. It's like she thinks I'm talking to her or something. I don't know. But anyway, okay, so if there is a show tomorrow, I am going to review of Dreams and Shadows. No, that wasn't me saying, ugh, it's no good. It was me reaching way over and picking this up. It's a fairly heavy box, picking it up awkwardly, and that's why I was kind of like, ah. Anyway, I will be reviewing of Dreams and Shadows from my friends over at Greenbrier Games. If there is not a show tomorrow, then obviously I will do the review on Monday, because I highly doubt anything's going on as far as, oh my gosh, they're going to race me in to go put this other stent in. But that is coming. I'm sure that is coming, and that is going to be, that's going to knock me out of action for a few days. As far as I know, as far as I understand. So, that is what's cooking. All right, there goes Pinky swinging on by. You will never see the cat on camera. Never. She will not sit on my lap. She will come right up next to me. She's not my cat. Smokey is my cat. Smokey is my little love bug who's always, around me. Although, like I said, she's snoozing now. Usually she kind of starts off the show. If she's down here, she'll start off the show on my lap. Sometimes you'll see her tail kind of flopping around a little bit. So anyway, moving right along, I've got a review of something that's not out yet, which is pretty cool. I like getting a first peek at Kickstarters that are on the horizon. Now, this is actually the first time I'm going to review an RPG product ahead of its release on Kickstarter. Now, I will say that I have reviewed RPGs that were in the midst of a Kickstarter project, and that has been for Pinnacle Entertainment. So I did a review of The Goon when they were doing the Kickstarter for the Goon setting for Savage Worlds, and I thought it was phenomenal. But then again, I am also a massive fan of Eric Powell's comic The Goon. Love it to death. It's one of my top 3 comic books of all time. Comic series. I know people think I'm kind of nutty, but I gotta tell you, it's excellent. And I think Pinnacle did a fantastic job. So today I am actually going to talk about Lankhmar, Savage Seas of Nehwon, which is going to be coming to Kickstarter on May 1st. I do believe this is going to be a pretty short project run. I believe it's only going to be about 2 weeks. So, of course, because it is Lankhmar, Savage Seas of Nehwon, it is part of the Savage Worlds system, and it is part of the Lankhmar setting. And if you don't know what Lankhmar is, I will tell you in just a moment. To be honest, if you don't know about Lankhmar, then I would take a guess that you would have no interest in this book anyway. Anyway, the book is written by Howard Jones with plenty of art, and I do apologize up front because I guarantee I am going to mess up the pronunciations of some of these names, but there is art from Blixa Bruno, Matthias Kelza, James Denton, Felipe Gaona, Ben Hughes, Irina Kuzmina, Wayne Miller, hey, that's an easy one, Elida Saxon, Unique Sopari, John Taylor, and Artur Treffner? Artur? I wonder if it's Arthur, but there's just a misprint. I don't know, because keep in mind, I have been taking a peek at the, the PDF, which is all the layout, everything's done. Of course, it's not out yet, so it might that name might be Arthur. All right, so let me take a quick peek at something here. Yes. No wonder. All right, so let's start showing off the book itself. All right. So anyway, as I mentioned, this source book is part of Pinnacle's Lankhmar series, which is devoted to role-playing in the fantasy world of Fritz Leiber. So if you're not familiar with Fritz Leiber and Nehwon and Lankhmar, the 2 main characters of the Fritz Leiber stories are Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. And I will be the first to say I am a massive fan of the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories. And Fritz Leiber wrote them over a period of about 40 years. Amazingly enough. And it's pretty wild because Leiber did not write them in chronological order. He wrote them almost along the same lines as Robert E. Howard writing his Conan stories. So Conan's stories were not written in chronological order. They just, as they popped into Howard's head, he would write them. Now, of course, Howard wasn't writing Conan stories for 40 plus years like Fritz Leiber was. So, as I mentioned, huge fan. And one of the things that really stands out about Leiber's work is there's some humor. The 2 main characters are effectively soulmates practically. They're best friends forever. But they don't always get along. There are periods throughout their careers in the stories where they have little falling out between the 2 of them. And interestingly enough, the best stories in the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser series are the ones where they are together. It's weird. It's very, very strange. Well, I shouldn't say strange. It's unique that in the stories themselves, that when it's only focused on, say, Fafhrd, or it's only focused on the Mouser, kind of like hey, you miss the other character. And even within stories where it's just they're each doing something different, and they've been split up, it still kind of feels wrong. It's very, very strange. Also, something to point out, even with these stories having started being written in the 1940s, there is a very modern sensibility to the tales. I will mention, not maybe necessarily as politically correct as people would hope them to be. I mean, there isn't like some really over the top racism or anything like that. There is, I would say, some sexuality in the stories that people, used to reading just, kind of typical fantasy tales might find a little, not bad, but just sort of like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So anyway, on to the book. The 98-page book actually begins by introducing the players to the various Seas of Nehwon. And I do want to mention that there are, in the various different stories, and there are a lot of short stories, novella length, and then there is one tale, which is a full novel. Fafhrd and Grey Mouser do travel the world, and there are some stories that focus on sea adventures or adventures under the sea. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, but it's not a huge aspect of the stories. The two heroes travel a lot, but it's not like, there's stories devoted like to them being pirates or things like, I mean, there's not like a lot of stories that are really, we're not talking like Patrick O'Brien here, right? We're not talking Horatio Hornblower series of stories. But the Seas of Nehwon do play an integral part in many of the tales. So anyway, the book also talks about various different aspects of being on these waters and what characters or NPCs could be expecting to be doing, be it fishing, traveling, smuggling, or maybe involving themselves in a bit of piracy. So only a few pages devoted to that. Then there's also new hindrances and powers that are setting specific, and just pretty small section on that too. Off the top of my head, I think it was only like 2-3 pages. Then there's some setting rules, and there's actually a good portion that's devoted to the various types of ships that you would find. And one thing to point out too, as far as the Liber stories, I mean, these different nations, these different kind of city-states, really, they have navies, but they're not like massive armadas. So one of the things with the Lankhmar stories, you'll find that you're not going to have tales where it's like big fleets battling it out. It's usually a pirate ship, or Fafhrd and Grey Mouser have their own ship. They may have just a small sloop with a Mingol, who is the Mingols are sort of kind of like Mongols, but they happen to be like the greatest sailors in Nehwon, which is the world that these stories occupy, that they take place in. And I have to say that you're not going to see like big fleet actions. So don't expect rules for that kind of stuff. But as I mentioned, there are various types of ships, and there is quite a bit of detail added to them, or about them as well. There's also an adventure generator. And I'm the first to point out, that's not my kind of thing. I am not a random tables sort of person. I am plotted out story. And if the players are off on their own, kind of tangent that I may not have planned for, I'm certainly not sitting there rolling on, random generation tables and things like that. And I have talked previously about how many role-playing games, say for an example like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, are actually mechanically built that you have to have these random encounters for the players to earn victory points for them to level up as they go through a story. Now, that's not necessarily the case with Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds isn't so sunk into that whole XP kind of factor as you would see with Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. But there is an adventure generator, and I've got to admit, looking through it, it is pretty cool. It's just not my bag of tricks. I don't necessarily happen to be a big fan of kind of just tossing random things together. But I will say that for those out there who don't mind that sort of thing, the adventure generator is pretty cool, I have to say. So let me just double check here. Let's make sure we've got all the images. Now, for some reason, very, very strange. Let me take care of this real quick. That is one of the things with doing reviews off of PDFs is, to me, in my opinion, it's kind of a little kind of boring, because it's just sort of like these slides are going past. And a lot of times when I'm actually doing a physical book, going through the book and kind of talking about it like right away triggers different stuff. Because I think everybody knows that I do not like to script things out for the show. I like it to kind of flow along and just be kind of off the cuff, right? But off the cuff there. So anyway, I was talking about the adventure generator, and then, in my opinion, let's share some other images as opposed to just cycling through those 7 that we saw previously. In my opinion, the high points of Lankhmar Savage Seas of Nehwon are the adventures and the bestiary. So there are quite a few adventures that are included in the supplement. And as I mentioned before, the supplement clocks in at about 98 pages. The vast majority of them are devoted to the adventures and the bestiary. The adventures are pretty good overall. And as I mentioned, there's quite a few of them. And one of the things I especially liked is they tackle a variety of styles. So it isn't as if, so every one of these adventures is somehow related to piracy. Either the players are kind of pirates or they're battling pirates. So I appreciated the fact that there's a lot of variety in these adventures. The other thing I like too, it's kind of a double-edged sword as far as the approach that I've seen that Pinnacle Entertainment has taken with their Lankhmar series. So as someone who's intimately familiar with the stories of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, I would have liked to see more spoilers, I guess I would say, in the books that have been released. And it looks as if, now I have to be honest, I have not completely, totally delved into the other Lankhmar products from Pinnacle. I have looked them over. I have looked over kind of the core setting supplement. And Pinky, enough, kitty. Come on, enough. Stop. Yes. She's just, it's been going on and on for minutes. I have never heard her complain so much. Huh? I know you want to be upstairs. You can't be upstairs. You gotta be down here with me. Sorry. Anyway, what can you do? Live show. Anyway, so one of the things, kind of a double-edged sword, is that it seems as if the authors for these Savage World supplements, these setting books for Nehwon, for the Fritz Leiber stories, have kind of shied away from spoiling anything. They don't want to spoil any of the stories. They'll refer to the title of a story, but then they don't actually kind of talk about the story. which, in my opinion, if you aren't familiar with Fritz Leiber's stories, I don't know why you would be picking up these source books in the first place. So I wish there was a little more, which is bizarre, but I wish there was more kind of like spoiling the stories, kind of deconstructing the stories in the Lankhmar products. That being said, I also like the fact that the way these supplements have been presented, and from what I have seen with the Seas of Nehwon, is that the writers have not shackled themselves to the stories. So they're not just rehashing the different stories as adventures for the players. So I do like that, because there are times when you will see a role-playing game or supplements that are licensed. They're licensed on other IPs, and you're seeing a lot of times kind of the adventures are just sort of taken right from the stories themselves, and essentially the player characters are being plugged in to where the author's protagonists would have occupied. So I do like the fact that Pinnacle Entertainment hasn't done that. That there's a lot of flavor from the Nehwon stories in the adventures in the books, but they're not just like religiously following like canon. And that also goes for the bestiary, because, as I mentioned, there aren't a ton of stories where the main focus is Fafhrd and Grey Mouser being on the seas or under the seas. There aren't a whole lot of different creatures or villains and things like that that they run across. So, of course, Pinnacle Entertainment has actually gone ahead and kind of created monsters and creatures and, I guess we would say, denizens of the deep that your player characters could encounter that are really within the flavor of Fritz Leiber's stories. They're not taken directly from his stories. Now, there are some that aren't, don't get me wrong, but there are some that are just kind of inspired by Fritz Leiber's tales. And I thought that was very, very cool as well. So, as far as the book itself, I really dig it. I dig a lot of it. And then, I gotta be honest. Okay, so how do I want to kind of sum this up? If you are a fan of Fritz Leiber's stories, and you have not, and you're a fan of Savage Worlds, right? And, okay, so I'm going to throw out a caveat here. Everybody knows, I've said it time and time again, you don't necessarily have to use a game system to use supplements and things like that, right? I am a big kit basher when it comes to role-playing games. So if you are a fan of Fritz Leiber's stories, then by all means, pick up the Lankhmar books from Pinnacle Entertainment. Regardless if you want to run it for Savage Worlds or you want to kind of tweak it for your own system, they are really, really good. As I mentioned before, my knock on them, and it falls for Lankhmar Seas or Savage Seas of Nehwon as well. Once again, there's like this avoidance of really delving into the stories and really kind of deconstructing the stories. Now, as an example, I have read the core book, the core setting book, and I thought it's good, but in some ways it was kind of like, to me, it didn't capture what makes Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories phenomenal and famous. And everyone who writes fantasy where they have a couple of characters who are like best friends try to channel that energy that Fritz Leiber gave to these two characters. That's kind of a knock, and I gotta give that little bit of a knock to this supplement as well. Does this make it bad? No, absolutely not. It's very difficult for somebody to sit there and kind of say, okay, well, this is how you're going to capture these great pieces of Fritz Leiber's stories and put them into your role-playing game. Trust me, professional authors who are looking to sell novels can't do that. So I don't expect that really from an RPG designer or supplement writer or what have you. But it is kind of noticeable. That being said, there's a lot of goodness in this supplement. It doesn't go heavy into gear, and it doesn't go heavy into just a bunch of tables of stuff. It's got a lot of adventures. I really do enjoy the adventures. I think the adventures, there's a wide swath of different stuff going on. Really, really dug that. And I like the bestiary as well. So this isn't like, I can't say it's a critical supplement for you to have if you've got if you're just starting out with the Lankhmar books from Pinnacle Entertainment. But if you have, then by all means, you really want to add this to your collection. So on a score of 1 to 10, I will give Lankhmar Savage Seas of Nehwon a very solid 8. It's not perfect. I don't think it's a must-have, but I do think it's really good. I do think it's good, and if you are into Fritz Leiber's stories, or if you play Savage Worlds, if that's your system of choice, and you want to dive into the world of Lankhmar, by all means, definitely pick up not only the Savage Seas of Nehwon supplement, but the other supplements that are available from Pinnacle Entertainment as well. All right, so that is it for today. I will probably tweet out if there's a show tomorrow or not. Like I said, at this point, pretty certain there won't be. Anyhow, when you are not watching The Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. If there's a show tomorrow, I will see you tomorrow. If not, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, very safe weekend. But regardless, as always, thank you for watching.